This girl traveled abroad to be an au pair in Spain and apparently had a nightmare of an experience.
Get ready with me while I tell you about my horror story as an au pair in Spain this summer. Okay, so for you that don't know what an au pair is, it's basically a live-in nanny, but abroad. So I did mine in Spain. Okay, my light just died. But basically, I had been searching for months and I finally came across this perfect family. There were 2 daughters. One was 9 and one was 8. Basically, I had a phone call with them and they were perfect. So we ended up signing the contract. So I started at the beginning of June. Mind you, I have never been to Europe before and this was my first time ever flying that far alone. My brother was in Italy and so I ended up meeting him there and we hung out for a week before I took my flight to Spain.
I don't think you could convince me to do this. Like, you're just putting a lot of faith in that family who are complete strangers. I don't think I trust people enough to do that.
I landed in Spain and I took the bus to their town and the dad ended up picking me up and he was super nice. He was very welcoming, gave me a hug. And while we were walking to the house, because this is a town where like everything is walkable, you don't really take cars. While we were walking to the house, we found out that we had mutuals, which is like really crazy to think about because they live in Spain and I live in California. But I knew a family that was going to be in that town that summer. I just randomly like figured it out and it was the same family. And so it was just like really weird how that all played out. Then the dad walked me to the school to pick up the girls and I ended up meeting them and they were both really shy at first, but they were honestly just like super adorable and I was so excited to be in Spain with them. We walked up to the house, I got moved in, it was perfect. And this is where things started to go wrong. One of the daughters moved in with her sister, so they were sharing a room and I took one of the daughter's rooms. I took the older one. And so obviously she's not used to that and she had been living in her own room this whole time and now has to like get up and move her stuff for me. And I think that is where our first issue started. But anyways, the first week went by and it was great, honestly. Like we had so much fun. I would drop them off at school at like 8 and then I'd pick them up around 4 and I'd have the whole day to myself. I made au pair friends. Honestly, it was great. Then the second week came around. As an au pair, a lot of people know this. This is just like an au pair rule.
I hope she covers this, but I'm just wondering if you get paid as an au pair. Like how does it benefit like the one doing the work and the job? Like, is this paid? Is this a paid position?
But weekends you get completely free. You're allowed to travel, you're allowed to do whatever you want, and that was in my contract. I was able to do whatever I wanted. That Saturday, I went out with my au pair friends, and obviously we went out really late. I came back around like 3 a.m. and honestly, they don't care. I asked them, I was like, do I have a curfew? They're like, no, do whatever you want. Obviously, like I was quiet when I came back. We're in Spain, you know? Then the next morning, obviously, I wasn't feeling 100% because I'd been out really late, had some fun with the girls, and we all woke up to get breakfast. They made us breakfast because we always have breakfast together on weekends. And they went to go see their horses. So I was home alone for like 3 or 4 hours. They did ask me if I wanted to go with them, and I said no, I'm okay, because I had to plan a trip because my mom was going to visit me because they had a week trip planned, and so I had a week to do whatever I wanted, and so my mom was just going to come. We were going to go travel together. But yeah, so they get home from horseback riding.
This is so crazy to me that you just like pick up your life, go to a different country and start living in someone else's home with their family and their lifestyle. That's like, I don't think I could do that.
And the older daughter comes up to me. Little daughter is on a trip right now, so she's not here. And the older daughter is like, hey, like, can we hang out? Can we do this? Can we do that? And I'm like, oh, okay, like, sure. Even though it was my day off, I went outside and I played with her for like probably an hour or two. And we were kind of just playing soccer and she started to be mean. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in my room. Like, I can't do this right now. So then I go back into my room and I'm just like hanging out, planning my trip. I'm on the phone with my mom. I end up hanging up on my mom multiple times because she keeps coming in. And she starts like asking me to hang out again. I'm like, oh, like I just hung out with you. Like, can I have a little bit of time to like just chill by myself? Mind you, I am off the clock. I already spent 2 hours hanging out with her on a day that I'm off. And I get paid $75 a week. That is nothing for a full-time nanny.
Whoa, $75 a week? That's charity work. What benefit is this to the au pair? Like, why do people do this? For what?
I guess au pairs just like don't get paid that much. Okay, yeah, so she comes into my room and she's asking me to hang out, and I'm like, okay, like not now, like I'm kind of trying to plan something. And she's basically just like, no, you're not, you're on TikTok. No, you're not, you're on TikTok. I'm like, okay, well, I'm like planning things on TikTok. I was like looking up restaurants and stuff. And she just like did not believe me, and she was like messing with me, and she starts jumping on the bed. Yes, it is her bed, but like in that moment it was mine, and so she's jumping on it with her shoes on, and I'm just kind of like, whoa, like I'm kind of getting annoyed, you know? And then she keeps coming in and out, in and out. And I had like a water bottle that I bought from like the store, just a plastic water bottle. And she comes in and she's like, this is my water. This is my water bottle. I'm like, no, I bought it. And so she like went and told her mom on me, and she's like, Brielle stole my water bottle. I'm like, no, I literally bought this at the store. I showed her the receipt. Like, she was just really getting on my nerves at this point. Mind you, they are not fluent in English at all. So us translating had to do a lot with like translating on the phone and just like trying to figure out things with like our hands and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So that goes on for like 4 hours.
I did not even think about the fact that the communication would be very difficult probably.
And I'm not kidding. Like her just like trying to hang out and stuff. And I get mad, and I'm like, okay, can you please leave? And she's like, no. And I'm like, no, like, please, I'm doing something, like, can you please leave? I'm being very polite. Mind you, she's still accusing me of things, and I'm just getting really annoyed. And so finally, I should have never done this, but I was just like, out. I pointed my finger, and I was like, please leave, I'm doing something. And she basically said, okay, if you can't hang out with me now, I'm gonna tell my dad that you can't have dinner with us. I was like, sure, go ahead, like, do that. Mind you,
imagine having like beef with like a 9-year-old.
Like, this day I had completely off. I could do whatever I wanted. I could rot in my bed. I could go travel. I could do whatever I wanted. So then she leaves, and a few minutes later I get a knock on my door, and it's the dad, and he's like, Brielle. And I was like, oh, hi. And I open the door, and he lays it on me. He starts yelling at me. He's like, how dare you disrespect my daughter like this? You are a part of this household. You need to act like it. And if you don't want to act like it, we won't feed you. And so I'm like, whoa, okay. And I'm not dramatizing anything. Like, this was a full ass, like, he was yelling at me. And so I was like, whoa, okay. So I like went back into my bed. This, like, it was like probably like a 2-minute like lecture. And I had like anxiety rush all the way down my neck. Like, I have photos of it, and I was just like stressed, like literally like shaking. I would never been like yelled at like that before in my life. So like I called my mom, and I was like, what the actual hell just happened?
And now you have to just continue to live in their house and abide by like their space and their, like, how uncomfortable. And now you know the parents are just gonna side with whatever the kid says.
And she was like, oh my god, that is not okay. And I'm like literally crying. I'm like, holy crap. And so I pretty much stayed in my room for the rest of the day because I was like genuinely scared of the dad, and the dad had to go on a work trip the next day for the next week, so I didn't have to see him. But yeah, him yelling at me was the start of all the problems. And so that was on a Sunday. So the next morning I wake them up to go to school. Mind you, I'm doing this all by myself. The parents are getting ready for work, and sometimes they even leave before I get the daughters up. So I'm trying to wake them up for school, and they're being mean. They are yelling at me. They are saying stuff in Spanish, and I actually voice recorded some of them, and I sent them to my friend that's fluent in Spanish, and I was like, what are they saying? And they were basically just saying like, you get to go out at night, therefore we don't have to go to school. And so like I'm texting the mom, and I'm like, they are being horrible this morning, like I don't know what to do. And she was just like, it's okay if they're late, like that's fine. Like I don't even know what ended up happening. I get at some point they both got up, and the older daughter left and went to school and didn't say a word to me because the older daughter can walk alone. Okay, and then so basically for the next 2 weeks, stuff like that was happening. I am like running out of time, so I'm gonna make a part 2.
I was gonna say before she said she started voice recording things that I would probably start recording things when parents weren't around, just because if the dad came back at me with that, I'd be like, oh, here's a little video of your daughter and how she speaks to me and disrespects me. I'm not the problem, but that's just me.
Okay, so anyways, he yells at me, and the daughter overhears the whole thing. And this is where it kind of like starts to like, things start getting worse. I think when the daughter heard him yell at me, she had power over me because she was like, okay, so I tell my dad this and he yells at her. Basically, I'm in control. And so basically, all of my authority went out the window. They would not listen to a single word I said. Not a single word. And I am not that, I'm like not that mean of a person. Like, I've worked in daycares my whole life and I've never been the one to say no. And so there were certain things that were like, no, let's not do that. Like, no sugar after school, which is that was their parents' rule. And they're like, no, our parents let us have sugar. And I'm like, actually, like, no, they don't. And so anytime any of these things would happen, they had these little watches. And they would go and they would call on their watch while their parents are at work. And obviously, like, I'm there so their parents can work. And so obviously I'm getting scared because I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get in trouble, blah, blah, blah.
That would be so frustrating, just battling it out with like a child the entire time.
And so there was this one day that I promised them that we would make cookies if they did something for me, because they were saying they wouldn't do anything for me. So I was like, if you do this, we'll make cookies tomorrow after school. And they're like, okay. So we get home from school and they're like, time to make cookies, time to make cookies. I'm like, okay, well, Kira, their house cleaner, was in the kitchen. And I was like, okay, we have to wait until she's done. Like, obviously we can't be cooking when she's cleaning. And the little one gets really mad. She's like, you said we can make cookies, blah, 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 blah. And she's also sitting here like, they don't have half the ingredients for cooking. Like, for cookies, they don't have like baking soda, none of it. So like they didn't even have butter. And so she's like, no, we can make them without butter. We can make them without this. I'm like, we literally can't. Like, we literally can't. And so then she's like, I'm gonna call my dad and ask if he can make cookies with me when he gets home from work. And I'm like, no, don't call your dad. Like, don't call your dad. Like, if you're gonna call your dad, like, I'm not making cookies with you at all. And she's like, well, I'll make them by myself, you know, like, just stuff like this. And I'm really trying to be nice here. Like, I am not a mean babysitter by any means. And I couldn't. So yeah, it just was like really bad because they were like, every time I'd say no, they'd call their parents. And I just couldn't really, like, do something that I was never, like...
Well, at this point, you're not even doing the job you were hired to do. Like, if they're just constantly calling their parents and stuff, the parents are probably sitting there being like, well, what's the point?
When my authority was never, like, taken into consideration, that's just where it got toxic. And, like, I physically couldn't do my job. Like, if they're saying no to everything, then, like, what's the point of me even being there? So, yeah, after that week, it was, like, end of week 3... I texted the mom, I go, we need to talk. And we had a conversation and I basically said that I can't do this anymore and I need to leave. And Damn. She said, okay, no problem. That's a bummer that you couldn't have stayed, but like, she did agree that the daughter did overhear when he yelled at me, and that's where it kind of got screwed up. But yeah. That was my experience as an au pair. There's a lot of other stories that I left out. I was just trying to get, like, the gist. If you guys want to hear more about them, I can make a part 3. But this is already super long and super detailed. So, yeah, moral of the story is when you're going to be an au pair, and if you are ever to be an au pair, really make sure that the family is, like, a good family. Because mine was a great family. It's just, there was just things that happened along the way, and... got screwed up. And honestly, if the dad never yelled at me, I don't think the daughter would have ever reacted the way she did. But also, like, there were so many red flags from the beginning. Like, they never ever once sat down with me and gave me like a list of rules. And so like I was just basically going off of like my morals and like what I would do, but like obviously that's different from their family. But I'm like, you never sat me down once and told me rules. So it's just like there were a lot of things happening there. And yeah, so good luck. If any of you guys want to be an au pair, my DMs are open and I would love to tell you guys more about it.
I mean, you're not really selling me on this whole au pair thing. You're not going to convince me now, especially after these stories, but let's hear about more of the details of it. So part 3. Before we get to more details, I need to take a sip of water, and you probably do too. So cheers. I also have a steep tea with me, but I'm also hydrating, see?
I wanted to make a part 3 because a lot of you guys didn't understand a lot of the things that I was saying, and I just wanted to clarify some things, but then a lot of you guys had questions, and so I just wanted to make a part 3. But anyways, so for some of you guys that thought that like I should have never told her that, I had that day off, and 2 days prior to that, the mom literally told me that when they were home, I did not have to do anything. Like I was off the clock when they were home. So I kind of just assumed that like I was supposed to be, like, I could do whatever I want. I could rot in bed or I could go do something. And then also, like, when I told her to leave, and I was kind of just like, oh, like, can you leave? Like, get out. there was a very like big language barrier. Like the mom and dad knew English pretty well. The dad knew it the most, but the mom didn't that well, and the daughters barely knew English. So like when this had been going on for like 4 hours, I was like kind of just like fed up, and I was just like, okay, like leave, like using my hand, because I wasn't sure if she was like fully understanding me. And so I was just making sure that like she actually knew that I was telling her to leave. And like,
yeah, I don't think she did anything wrong by telling her to leave. That is your space. You're literally from a different country living, and that is now your room while you're there. I think asking anyone to leave would have been totally acceptable. No? Especially when you're off the clock?
she wasn't thinking something else. Mind you, like at this time, that room was my space, and I did not have a lock on my door. So I could never just have my own privacy, which was like a very big part of for me. And I know like a lot of au pairs, like we all like to have our privacy. Like, yes, we are living with someone and we need to like act like we're in that family. But on the weekends when I have my own time, I want to have my privacy, and I just want to be able to hang out in my room and not have to be like bothered by people if I'm trying to like do something, you know what I mean? But yeah, the dad came into my room with that doesn't have a lock, and that's when he yelled at me. And he basically said, to like clarify the argument and the yelling, he basically said that like, what am I doing? How dare you respect my daughter like this? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what did she tell you? Because obviously I have no idea what she said to him. Like, she could have lied, and she could have said I did something crazier than I actually did. Because based on his yelling, I was like, whoa, like I didn't even do something that bad. Like, I was just like really confused. And so yeah, like he's sitting here screaming at me, and I'm like, I'm just confused. Like, I thought I had the day off. Like, their mom said a few days ago that like when you guys were home, like I feel free to do whatever you wanted. And so I was like, I thought that was like, you know, what was going on.
Seems like there was a big miscommunication with what like the family's expectations were versus what, you know, her job and like the more technicalities of an au pair and what her contract detailed.
No, like if you want to be a part of this family, like you need to act like it. Like, I'm also getting paid $75 a week to work full time, and the only time I get off is on the weekends. I don't know, I was just like a little confused by that. And also like scared to death, because I've never had like some older man yell at me besides like my parents. Like, I do not mess with like strangers yelling at me. Like, if my parents are yelling at me, that's one thing. If someone that I just met is yelling at me, it's scary. It's scary. And like for another reason, the main reason why I left is because the daughters were like being horrible all week. Like, it was the entire week. After the dad yelled at me, he left for Brazil, and so like I kind of got to be a little bit like less scared, because I wasn't like having him around like scared that he was gonna yell at me again. But they were horrible, and they would not listen to a word I said. The mom would wake up earlier than us and go to work, and so I had no help from the parents. Obviously, like the dad was on a trip. So this had been happening all week, and I think Thursday was the day that I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And what happened was she would not get up, and she was yelling at me, and like I said in my last videos, like I literally I recorded it and I sent it to my friend. And she translated it for me, and I told her, I go like, you know, like if you're not gonna get up, like I'm gonna call your mom. Obviously I was like, not gonna call her mom, because like I don't want to get her involved, but I was just saying that just so like she could like maybe like get up, you know. And she ended up going to the bathroom and locking herself in the bathroom.
Like, what? I've worked in a daycare for many years, so I understand working with children, but like the locking in the bathroom, how do you what am I gonna do? Break down this door? Especially after your father is gonna just yell at me and take your side because I don't even know what you said to him. What are these fancy watches? Like an Apple Watch? Literally sounds like some spy kid shit. Mom, the babysitter said no.
And they had these little watches, and these watches were the death of me. They would call their parents for anything that I said no to. And I'm like, okay. And so like obviously I'm scared, because I'm like, I'm getting in trouble because she's in the bathroom yelling at her mom in Spanish, and I'm like, what is she saying? Like, I have no idea what she's saying. She could be saying the most horrible stuff, and I could be getting in so much trouble. Like, I just have no idea. So that's when I texted the mom and I said like, we need to talk. And the dad was still not home, and she told me to meet her at the school for pickup, and then we would talk there. We sit down, the daughters are like playing, they're really curious like what's happening, they have no idea what's happening. And And I sit down and I just get emotional and I'm like, I really wanted to make this work. Like, I traveled all the way here and I don't want to just leave and give up on something. That's not the type of person I am. Like, I'm not the type of person just to like give up on something. And I really, really tried to make it work the whole week. Like, I did not think that I would ever leave because I'm not a quitter, you know? And so like I've also had like amazing experiences with other girls around their age. I worked at a daycare like for a really long time, and so I had lots of experience with kids. And the mom was very nice and very understanding, and was just kind of like, okay, like I don't really know what to do in this situation because like obviously your flight isn't changeable. And that's where I was like, oh no, my flight's fully changeable. And she was like, oh, it is. And then I was like, yeah. And so like I obviously like I know you guys needed someone till end of July, mind you, it's like end of June, so they still needed someone for a full another month. And she kind of was just like, you know what, I'm gonna let you do whatever you want. It's your life. If you obviously feel uncomfortable here, like you can leave. Obviously, like I'm sad that it didn't work out, and so I was like, yeah, I have to leave. Like I'm sorry, I can't stay here. And so then that weekend they leave for a family trip, and so I have the house all to myself. And this is where it gets good, guys. The whole family comes back from their trip and I leave that Monday. So they come back on Sunday, I leave the next morning, and they're telling me like, they're like, oh, what time like does your flight leave? And I was like, I just need to be at the bus station by 10, and the bus station's probably like a 5-minute walk from their house. And so they're like, okay, that's okay. They're trying to figure out what they should do because obviously like I couldn't lock the house when I leave because it's just a key. And so like we'll figure it out. And then they basically kind of came to the conclusion that like they were just gonna leave the doors unlocked.
That would be
because
so awkward.
they leave so much earlier for work than my like time that I had to be at the bus station. And so it's 7 o'clock. I wake up because they're all going to school, and I like go out to the kitchen and I'm just kind of like waiting around for them to leave because it's just really awkward at this point. The mom had already left for work, and it gets to 7:45, which is the time that they have to leave for school. I am nowhere near packed. Like nowhere near packed because I'm assuming that they're leaving at 7:45 to go to school. And then once they leave, I'm gonna pack, like make myself some food, you know, like shower, like get ready to go travel, you know, how many hours. And the dad comes into my room and he goes, hey, I'm taking the girls to school, like let's go. And I go, wait, what? You said I could leave at 10. And he's like, no, I changed my mind now that the mom's not here. He's like, no, I changed my mind, like you need to leave now. And so I got kicked out. I had 2 minutes to get ready and get all my stuff together. I probably left stuff at their house.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, whoa. So I waited at the bus station for like 3 hours, literally. When I could have like, I had no breakfast, I had nothing. Like I was just like, whoa, I just got like kicked out.
Yeah.
Basically, they were like, she's not part of this family anymore. Like, we're not paying her. Like, get the hell out. And so I was just like, okay, whatever. Yeah, that was crazy. Like, I had to walk down with my suitcase while he was dropping them off at school.
The worst part is that you can't even say anything when he's like, I changed my mind, you need to leave, because they're not paying you. You're no longer working for them. So you quite literally just have to get the f out of there. If you guys have ever been an au pair or know someone who has, I need your input. This is something that you couldn't catch me doing. Absolutely not. Does not intrigue me one bit. I'm a little confused as to why people even do it, to be honest. What's the point? Let me know. Stay classy out there. Stay sassy. I'll see you tomorrow.